There's an old Babylonian myth called the appointment in Samara. There's a wealthy merchant who sends his servant to the market to get supplies. And while the servant is at the market, he bumps into death. And he feels like he's really shaken, and he sees death, and he feels like death has given him a threatening gesture, and he goes running back to the merchant and says, I didn't get any of the supplies. I ran into death. There was a threatening gesture, and I'm really scared. Can I borrow your horse? I need to get out of here. And so the merchant, of course, says, yes, take my horse. And the servant, with a fury, goes and decides he's going to go to Samara. So the merchant goes to the market himself because he needed to get his supplies. And there he runs into death. And he sees her and he says, why did you give my servant such a threatening gesture? And she said, that wasn't a threatening gesture. That was a surprise. I was surprised to see him here. I have an appointment with him in Samara later. Many of us think we can outrun death. We don't think about death so much, but death has a lot to teach us about life. Death has so many lessons for us. Instead, we tend to cling. We tend to think that it doesn't affect us. We don't think about it until we're at death's doorstep. But we have so much disappointment. Life can give us so much disappointment if we don't accept that all things end, that everything ends, that there's a life cycle, there's a life and death to everything. None of us get out of here alive. And we can appreciate that we're all in the same boat, that we all experience this impermanence of life. It's a great Buddhist teaching that nothing lasts forever, that there's impermanence in absolutely everything. And death reminds us of this. It reminds us to appreciate life. Death can change our perspective. If we're able to embrace impermanence, we can appreciate life more fully. And so Frank Ostaseski is the author of this book, The 5 Invitations, with the subtitle, Discovering What Death Can Teach Us About Living Fully. It's a great book. It's filled with lots of stories and practices. These 5 invitations are really practices. They're not so good if you just hold them in theory. You have to practice them. And it's a practice that can help you live life more fully, more joyfully, more meaningfully. He says on page 19, impermanence is an essential truth woven into the very fabric of existence. It is inescapable, perfectly natural, and our most common companion. None of us can escape death. None of us can, in our human experience, escape loss. So not just death of the body, but loss of anything. The death of an identity, the death of a relationship, the death of a job, the death of lots of things end in our lives, but we tend to want to cling and hold on, and that's when we suffer. Because we're not allowing this natural flow that there is to life. There's a Japanese Zen word called, it's soji, and it translates into birth-death. Birth-death. And so our lives are this little dash, just this little dash between birth and death. And what do we want to do with this little bitty bit of time that we have, which is our lives? It can help us stay present knowing that this is all we've got. So make the most of it. Don't waste it. Rob Bell is a minister. He's out in California. Many of you have probably heard of him. He's got books out. He does a lot of videos. And I recently watched a video that he did called The Introduction to Joy. Anybody see that? Maybe a couple of you. So he's such a great speaker and funny. It's about an hour and a half. I totally recommend it if you want to spend some time listening to him talk about the joy and what it entails. But he talks about the book of Ecclesiastes. And in that book, in the first chapter, it says, vanities of vanities. All is vanity. And vanity is a word that comes from a Hebrew root word hebel, meaning vapor. All is vapor. All is vanity. All is, and don't worry, this is just water. This is just water. Life is just that. He does that a few times. That's it. That's all you get. That's that little dash. That's your life. Did you see it? It's gone. So we want to really appreciate that vapor of life that we have, that little dash of life that we have. So don't wait to appreciate it. Don't wait to enjoy it. Don't wait to live your passion. Don't wait to live a life that you would truly love living. Don't wait to say, I love you to someone. Don't wait to forgive someone. Just don't wait, because we never know when our dash will run out. We never know when it'll be our last breath. We never know when the last drop of that vapor will drop to the ground. We don't know. So don't wait to live it fully. There's such synchronicity in this book. I was part of a weekly group that Martha Creek facilitated of ministers, where we would share best practices and share what's going on in our ministries. And in December, Martha told all of us, when things are chaotic, and things have been really chaotic the last 3 years, she goes, I like to get back to basics. And one of the basics for me is this book, The 5 Invitations. We have a few in the bookstore, by the way. But this is one of the basics, and she says she has used this book many times when things are chaotic. To get back to, what is life all about? What is life here to teach me? How can I live my life more fully? And one of the invitations in this is don't wait. So she recommended this book late December. And I looked it up on Amazon because I was going to purchase it. And I always look at the user reviews when I'm going to buy something. I always look at the user reviews. And the very first user review was written by a woman who had just made her transition, part of our community. Her name's Joanne Kelly. And I knew I had to buy this book. I knew it was synchronicity that this book would come into my awareness, that Joanne had just passed, that she was filled with joy right before passing, excited about life and excited about things that she was going to experience. And then this book comes along. And what did I say? Oh, I can't do it now. I'm going to wait. Don't wait. And I was going to use it for a spring program, and then things got pretty chaotic, and I didn't do a spring program. And then I thought, well, I'll use it for fall program, and then things were still kind of chaotic. I'm like, I think I'll wait, and maybe I'll do it with something. Maybe next year we'll use this book. You see how we do? It's so easy to do that, to put things off. And then I looked at it again and said, don't wait. Like, oh, I'm waiting. What am I waiting for? The timing of this book is now. Joanne gave us an incredible gift with her review of this book. Martha Creek gave me an incredible gift by recommending this book. And so I invite all of you to take a look at, what can death teach us? What can impermanence teach us? We need to live in the present moment so that we don't miss out. Life is not in the past or in the future. It's right here, right now. And we need to embrace that. At most Zen meditation centers, there's a big wooden block. And one of the monks will take a mallet and pound on the block to call the students to come in for meditation. And on that block are written these words in black ink: "Be aware of the great matter of birth and death. Life passes swiftly. Wake up. Wake up, do not waste this life." And I love that because over time, the mallet gets worn out because it's being hit on the wooden block. And over time, the words disappear and the block itself becomes the teaching. That nothing stays the same, that everything changes. Everything is impermanent. Everything moves. And we need to be reminded of that. It's only our clinging to things and wanting them to not change that makes us suffer. But life is about change. Frank Ostesky, okay, I struggle with his I've listened to the pronunciation so many times. Ostesky says this on page 39: "When we relax the clinging to our treasured beliefs and ideas, soften our resistance to the blows of life, stop trying to manage the uncertainty, and hold ourselves more lightly, then we become a less solid thing, less of a fixed identity. And we're more joyful. We're more free. We're more able to just be and live our lives. And that can bring us hope. It can bring us hope when we're not so stuck on being just a certain way, this is who I am. Well, that's who you are in this right moment right now. But the next moment, maybe not. We need to allow ourselves that freedom to change. Frank talks about a hospital that he went to visit, and he was touring the hospital, and he heard Brahms' Lullaby being played. And he asked one of the nurses, like, what's going on with this lullaby? And she said, "Oh, every time a baby is born in this hospital, we play that lullaby." And he said, "Even the difficult births?" And she said, "All births. All births, we play Brahms' Lullaby to remind us that life anew is happening. Birth and death, death and birth. Always this continuous cycle. And we need that. We need that hope. We need that uplift for ourselves to know that there's new life, that there's always new life. Anytime something ends, it's because something else is being birthed. And so we're invited to don't wait. Life is too short to wait. It's too short to wait. We don't know when that dash will run out. Children get this a whole lot better than us adults. They're not so afraid. They tend to just go with the flow. Maybe not always, stubbornness, but they go with the flow. They have fun. They're playful. They have hope. They're not stuck in this clinging to being a certain way. They're not so afraid of death like a lot of humans are. In fact, I was wondering how many people, what percentage, and it was 2020 article or research that said that only 42% of American adults are afraid of death. I was kind of surprised by that. I thought it would have been higher. But we're more afraid of the death of a loved one than death of ourselves. And it said women are more afraid of death than men. But the article went on to say maybe women are more willing to admit that they're afraid of it. I love that. That was good. But generally, children are less afraid of this. They allow more space to be, Have fun. And so as Jeannie mentioned, there was summer camp this week, 25 kids, and Kate put together a slideshow, and I want to show it to you, share it with you right now.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Yeah, they're not waiting for anything to have fun, are they? Yeah, so sweet, so sweet. So Frank says this too about not waiting. Don't wait is an encouragement to step fully into life. Don't miss this moment waiting for the next one to arrive. Don't wait to act on what is most important. Don't get stuck in the hope for a better past or future. Be present. Be present. Any major life-changing event can offer us an opportunity to embrace our impermanence and face life with a new way of being. Excuse me. In 2008, when my brother passed away, my sisters, I have 4 sisters, and I started saying I love you to each other every time we hung up the phone or every time we saw each other. We had never done that before. It's not something we grew up with. It's not something my parents said to us as children. But that life-changing event brought out in us this knowing that nothing's permanent. Let people know how you feel about them. It's a beautiful way death can teach us this. It's a beautiful way how it can teach us this, to change our perspective, to get an idea of what is needed in the present moment. We don't want to wait till something awful happens to do that. Many people who are dying say that they no longer need their identities, that once they are able to release themselves of those identities that kept them enclosed or kept them being a certain way, that they felt like they were much bigger. They had a much bigger life. On the last class of my spiritual direction program, our teacher, our facilitator said, I want you to share, we're going to go through everybody and share one word that describes that person to you. And he went first. And he got to me and he said, big. I'm like, big. Oh, I try so hard to maintain my weight. Like, big. But then he went, later, I was like, big, really? Later he explained, he goes, Sue, I just see you as such a bigger presence than you even see yourself. That you're not holding back, that you're not, yeah, it was beautiful. It was beautiful. Like, go large, go big or go home, right? That phrase that we hear. On Friday, Kevin and I watched Jerry and Marge Go Large. Anyone see that movie? It was cute, it was heartwarming. It's like, you know, after all the movies that are out there with a lot of violence and action, this was just so sweet. It's about a couple who it's based on a true story, Jerry and Marge Selby, and Jerry has just been kind of forced into retirement. And he's in Michigan, they live in Michigan in a small town, Everett, and he works at the Kellogg's plant. And he's forced out of his work, and he's worked there like 42 years or 46 years or something, a long time, doesn't like change, lived in the same house, married to his wife for 40-something years, and he doesn't know what to do with himself now that he's retired. Until he's a math whiz. He figures out a way to beat the lottery, to win at the lottery, legally. And it's true. I mean, it's called windfall. It's no longer around anymore. But he finds a way to win the lottery, and he starts winning the lottery. And his wife is like, Marge is like, yeah, let's do this. Like, they're excited again about life. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. And he brings in, and it's just not for himself. He's a very modest person, but he brings in the whole town. The town had been dying. And he brings in the town to pool their money, and they start winning a lot more, and to revitalize their town, to bring back the jazz festival that was so important to them, to open shops again, to bring back tourism. He does it this is how we help each other. They ended up winning $27 million before the game was shut down. Because this, you know, and they shut it down in Michigan. They were driving to Massachusetts to play because it was the only state that still had it for 9 years. 9 years buying lots and lots of tickets and then counting them all. And Anyway, I recommend the movie because it's really cute, but it's, go large, go big. Don't wait to live your life until you're retired, or don't wait to live your life until you're on your deathbed and then you want to have all these regrets. Don't wait. Life is too short for that. So what have you been putting off? What needs to be said? What needs to be shared with people you love? What needs to be forgiven for yourself? It's an opportunity, if you take this invitation, to not wait, to live more fully into that life. Life is too short, and we never know when our dash is going to run out. I love in this first chapter, and I'm not going to even try to pronounce this person's name that wrote this. Whatever we have done with our lives makes us what we are when we die. And absolutely everything counts. So don't wait. Live your life fully, because you deserve that. Namaste. Peace be with you.